Good?
Yep.
All three are rolling?
Yeah.
Okay. You're getting the 3-camera treatment.
I don't know, is that good or bad?
And the fancy cameras.
Ah.
Okay, so let's start with what happened over the weekend. You mentioned it in front of supporters today. From where you sit, what exactly happened at the Republican convention this weekend?
Well, I think most people are aware of the fact by now that it was a chaotic convention, to say the least. And it was disingenuous, dishonest. Everything that happened from Friday through, well, actually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday was structured in a way to benefit one candidate, and it wasn't me. And but there were other things leading up to the convention that helped get us to the point on Friday where I finally decided that this was not a fair process. It was not an honest process, which bothered me the most. Where I finally decided I had to withdraw from this. It was some called it a clown show, some called it a crap show, using a different adjective in front of the show. So it was very clear to me that I had to remove myself from that.
Was it a clown show?
Well, yes. Yes. You know, so I was arriving. I was told by my staff this is chaotic, and so I went and stayed someplace else, waiting and talking. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they had a meeting to decide whether or not Mr. Byrd would be disqualified due to his admissions of a grand larceny and a bank larceny and a identity theft charge, which he admitted to. So he was disqualified. From what we're told from someone who was inside that meeting, it was begrudgingly applied, the disqualification. And once it was applied, then the question came up is, well, we can't go out there and say that Dave Reichert is the only candidate. All hell will break loose. And so what they decided to do was, well, let's disqualify Reichert. So the effort was to try and disqualify me, but there was nothing to disqualify me on. So then the next question was, so maybe we just go ahead and table the vote for the gubernatorial candidates, take it off the agenda, which removed my speaking role on Friday morning and took the whole gubernatorial question off the table. That just gives you an idea of the planning that was done, the changing of rules, procedures that were changed to get to the outcome that certain people in leadership wanted to get to. And so it was at that time on Friday late morning that I decided that I'm done with this.
So with all of that said, I mean, you're running as a Republican. What does that say about the state of the Republican Party in Washington State?
It's in total disarray. I mean, it's been, I have said it's being taken hostage by a small group of people who just happen to be in positions of authority within the current structure of the party. There are groups of people across the state who have decided to separate themselves from that small group and begin to rebuild the party in their communities.
So are you still running as a Republican?
Yeah, I'm running as a Republican, representing all the other Republicans who recognize that in this state and really across the country, what people are looking for is some common sense, is the ability to, and you heard it this morning, most of the people in the meeting today were independents, Republicans, and some moderate Democrats that you may have recognized from their comments too. But all those people in that meeting, majority Republicans, recognize that the important piece here is that let's have someone who has common sense, who looks at problems with, you know, what are the facts, asks questions, what are the solutions, and then makes a decision and moves forward. But first you have to have a conversation with the entire community. You just don't make these decisions from an ideological perspective and expect to solve problems. And part of the problem with our government today is that we have been making decisions ideologically from the left, and that's why we find ourselves in the status that we find ourselves in today in the state of Washington.
So one other thing about the convention, Danny Westneat wrote about it in the Seattle Times today about the platform that was voted on, including abolishing the vote-by-mail system and going back to the way things were. You've been through a bunch of elections with the vote-by-mail system in Washington State. Do you still believe in vote-by-mail?
Well, I believe in fair elections, so whatever that process is, and in the state of Washington, we have the opportunity to vote by mail, we have the opportunity to vote online. People have asked me that question, and I said, look, we have a process today, and it's ridiculous to look backwards and think that we're going to go back to a system that's archaic. We now operate in a world of technology. And so both parties are working together to make sure that our election process is safe. I have full faith and confidence that our election process is safe and fair.
Thank you. So moving forward, we're doing this segment 4 for 24 where we're talking to people running for office, elected officials, about their top 4 priorities. You talked about this a little bit this morning, the things you want to fix. What are the 4 things you want to fix in 2024 if you're elected governor?
And the 4 things I've chosen to go after and fix are 4 things that I've heard from people around the state that I've talked to. So these aren't like ideas that jumped out of, I'm Dave Reichert, I don't have all the answers, I'm one guy, right? So as I talk to people around the state, the 4 top issues that I want to address are the criminal justice system in total, homelessness, which reduces down to me, and most people recognize is mental illness and substance abuse, and addressing those 2 issues, and we can help fix the homelessness problem. And then third is the economy, which most people relate to high taxes, continually piling on taxes, regulation being second in the economic topic. Fourth is education, and people see their lack of freedom, especially when it comes to school district the superintendents. They want to have local control rather than edicts from Olympia.
So how do you fix public safety? You know this, that one of your opponents, Bob Ferguson, has already talked about $100 million, hiring a bunch of new cops statewide. You talked about it this morning about where Washington State stands in public safety. So how do you fix it? It's not something that can be fixed overnight.
Well, yeah, especially with the way that laws have been rewritten in the last few years regarding policies that restrict police officers from actually doing their job. So yes, they've made a little progress in the pursuit laws, but they're not quite there yet. They should allow some technology along with some of the laws that we're constructing around pursuit. There is a place in this world to have safe pursuits. Police officers should be able to pursue criminals. I think most people, the majority of people in Washington State, would agree to that. With that thought about pursuit policy, that really addresses the first issue, and that is allow police officers to enforce the law. And that means going after the criminals who have just committed the law, especially when you arrive at the scene and the criminals are still there. They ram your police car and you're not allowed to pursue the crook. That's ridiculous. It's an upside down world in my opinion. 2 other issues are associated with supporting police officers, and I think first thing is we have to elect city officials, county officials, local officials that support police officers, that understand the need to have community policing. We go back to that old terminology of community policing and working with the community and building trust. I'd really like to change the way that laws are applied when we look at the liabilities that police officers take on when they make these split-second decisions, life or death decisions. They're worried about getting sued, and they're worried about being charged with a crime themselves. And yes, we need to hold cops accountable for bad actions. Cops don't want bad actors within their police department, within the law enforcement community, because they make us all look bad. So you have to combine the holding accountable, just as you would a citizen to the law in the state of Washington, holding law enforcement officers accountable to the law also. But you've got to give them some leeway when they make those life and death decisions in an instant. And I shared a story earlier today about my own experience, and I have a number of those that I could share. And then what really bothers me are 2 additional things. and that is the Burn JAG grant monies have been redirected and taken away from the Burn JAG task force forces here that exist in the state of Washington. So instead of having a steady stream of funding to fund those task force efforts, to arrest those people that are bringing fentanyl into our communities, and people are dying, 21% increase in fentanyl deaths in Washington state over last year. They've taken that money away from enforcement, and that's the whole purpose of those federal dollars. They've taken them away and they put them into other services, which that's good to have services, but you've got to have, as you may have heard in our meeting, a three-legged stool. And you've got to have that support of the community, you've got to have enforcement, you've got to have that social services aspect of it. And when they took the Burn JAG money away, they only now have funding for 1 year. So every year now they have to go back and ask for funding to continue the investigation on cartels and gangs. The last thing that I would mention in law enforcement, I have a longer list, but I'll end it with this. We have a system in place through an appointed parole board who have released about 35% of our inmates who have not completed their sentences. There has to be consequences. You have to do the time if you do the crime, the old saying. If you're going to do the crime, you got to do the time. And people need to know that are committing crimes in our communities. When I visited small businesses here in Wenatchee, that is the first thing that was mentioned to me, was that the crime in Wenatchee, the crime rate and the feeling of being unsafe. And so I would remove members of the parole board, the ISRB. I would remove those members, and I have personal experiences with cases in the past where they're allowing or want to allow the release of people who have murdered more than one person. They want to release them from prison. And I know these people, and I know they would kill again.
I didn't even hear you say touch the surplus money that you talked about even this morning to hire a bunch of new officers or try to attract new officers. You didn't mention anything about that.
Yeah. So, well, what I did say this morning in regard to the funding piece was that cops don't do this job to get rich. And in my opinion, the comment, the plan of Bob Ferguson is it's all about money. So if we pay cops, if we just pay the cities and the counties some money, then everything will be fine and cops will come. No, cops will not come unless they're supported by the community. They have assurances that their lives and their families are going to be protected by the law just as much as any other citizen is protected by the law, and that they're supported. Those things are things that are absolutely critical. Not only supported in the community, but supported by the prosecutor's office in prosecuting crimes, having jail space. Some communities need new jails. The jails are ancient, but a community does not want to spend the money on law enforcement, on public safety, and they're not going to be able to do that until they get the community support. So, just coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm going to spend $100,000 or whatever the figure was he threw out," it does not solve the problem. It's a lot more complicated than just throwing some money at the problem.
So let's talk about numbers. I think and this is objectively speaking, a lot of Republicans have looked to you for years to run for governor because of your King County ties, and that's where Republicans have had problems for years in terms of the vote. And I've talked to consultants who talk about this all the time, how tough it is for a Republican to get 40% of the vote. You know this, but I'll rattle it off. Donald Trump lost 74-22 and 730,000 votes in the last election. Inslee won by nearly 550,000 votes. You beat Tony Ventrella by 13 points in 2016, but Jay Inslee won by 35 points, 350,000 votes. Rob McKenna lost by 25 points, 230,000 votes in 2012. Gregoire won by nearly 30 points in 2008. Yeah. Republicans have had a butt kick in King County for a long time and haven't been able to get over the 40 mark. So why are you the guy to get over the 40 mark in King County?
Because I've never taken the butt kicking that everybody else has taken. So when Obama ran, I won both times. So I've run 7 times in Congress, won 7 times, and they were tough elections, as everyone knows. And that was in a Democrat district that a Republican won. Why? Because we approached problems based on facts. We were looking for solutions, and we listened to everybody in the community. And not everyone was happy with my vote. So I would take a vote in the 8th district, and if it was a yes vote, I'd upset one half of the constituency, and the other half would be happy. If I took a no vote, then it would be reversed, you know. You'd have to come back to the community and explain your vote. We can win this time because the issues that we're facing, the ones that I listed off, are matched perfectly with the experience that I've had throughout my lifetime. And not just only in the law enforcement world, but in Congress, being the chairman of the Trade Committee on the Ways and Means Committee. And that is, as you know, 40% of our jobs here in Washington State directly associated and related to trade. Chairing the Tax Committee, chairing the Human Resources Subcommittee. Those are things that I did in Congress that fit, to me, perfectly with the issues that we're facing today. The other point I'll make is that the polls have been consistently showing that that undecided voters pool has increased from a 7% pool to almost 25%. We already have 43% of that 25%. Bob Ferguson only has 32% of that 25. We're going to get the rest of those 25%. And you saw some of that today at Pybus Market. People I've never met before. I'm a Democrat, I want to sign, and by the way, I'm voting for you. So that's happening all across the state.
So you think you can get over 40 in King County to win this election?
I don't know what the number in King County would be, but I'm confident I'm going to do well in King County.
What's your strategy for winning or getting to a certain number in King County? Because all the elections over the last 20 years have shown you've got to do well in a statewide race as a Republican in King County.
Well, I mean, the advantage I have there is I have great name ID already in King County, Snohomish County, Pierce County. You know, I see that as a collective of votes. We're spending a lot of time in Seattle, meeting with constituents in Seattle. We've had a lot of events downtown Seattle, meeting with people, and we're going to continue to do that. I think that the attraction is, again, I don't base my decisions on ideology. I base my decisions on fact, and I look for input from people who live in the communities that want and need to be listened to, that want and need help. And that's why I'm doing this. I know I can win. I think people are ready for a change. I think that it's time that we balance our approach to government. After 40 years of a Democrat governor, and almost 40 years, and our House of Representatives, by the way, has been in the minority for 23 years. So it is time, I think, it brings some other perspectives, some new ideas, fresh ideas, and a balance. Let's just step back, take a deep breath, and make sure we're going in the right direction. And I think that's really a message that resonates.
And I heard what you told everybody. You talked about not being so ideological. I just told you the numbers about what happened 4 years ago with Donald Trump. Would you campaign for Donald Trump, or would you campaign alongside him in Washington State?
Well, the one thing I'm not going to do is let the national politics drive what's happening here in Washington State. So I'm not going to nationalize this race. I'm focused on what's happening here in Washington, and I'm focused on correcting what Bob Ferguson and Jay Inslee have done over the last 12 years.
That sounds like a no.
You can read that any way you want to. My effort is really, and truly, I'm being honest, is right here in Washington State. Do I care about the rest of the country? Absolutely, we're a part of it. But I'm not going to let this campaign be divided by jumping into nationalizing this race.
So when we last spoke, we talked about homelessness. You had even talked about building a bunch of shelters on McNeil Island. Do you still believe that's a viable solution?
Well, you know, I think that the point of that example was to give you an idea that, for me, everything is on the table. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, if you are a person who's running for governor and you think you know all the answers, I'm not voting for you. I wouldn't think other people would too. If I come in and said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, and I have the answers and you got to trust me. No, it's a communication with the community, trying to figure out what the best resolution is. And so the fact is that we need a place, as you heard me say today at Pybus Market, I want to triage our homeless. So I want to take women and children off the street first. We have a plan in place already. People are working. It's working. So we just attach ourselves to that plan, and that is, and again, this is talking to the community. They have homes much like domestic violence safe places for families that have gone through that, where the addresses are held secret so that the abusers can't find where they are. So they're protected. So we do that for the women and children who are living on our streets today. Secondly, our veterans need that same safe place. They need to be taken off the streets. There's no way our veterans should be on the streets. Third, the large group that you're talking about, we start looking for a place for them, whether it's the soon abandoned university, Evergreen University, whether it's a downtown building, whether it's an old hotel in Renton, whether it's McNeil Island. It doesn't really matter as long as you locate a place, you make a decision, you start to house people there, you give them responsibilities. They know they have to get up at 8 in the morning, the light comes on, they know they have to make their bed, they know they have to mop the floor, they know they have to clean a bathroom, and then they go to classes. They're going to go to their mental health professional, they're going to go to work therapy classes, they're going to go to drug substance abuse classes. Those things have to be around those people, and it's going to take time because we're in a deep, deep hole right now.
So when somebody accuses you of being extreme on that position, the idea of shipping people to an island, you would say what?
Well, I don't think any idea right now should be off the table. That's what I say. I say that the goal is we need to help these people. Let's find a way to do it. Let's find the cheapest way. Let's find as far as housing, let's find the best way to surround them with social services. If people disagree with that and consider that to be extreme, I would strongly disagree.
Another issue that is going to be forefront in this election is abortion. You and I have talked about this in the past. You have told me what your personal position is. You've also told me that you believe that issue has been decided in this state. However, there are voters, independent voters, who are still concerned about any sort of change on the state level and a federal ban on abortion. Would you support a federal ban on abortion?
No, I'm again focused on Washington State. The Supreme Court has already decided this issue. This is a states' rights issue. We have had a law in Washington State that was passed in 1970. This is a question that has already been answered in Washington State. I don't believe any elected official, any politician should be making this decision for the women of Washington State, period. Or the voters, all the voters of Washington State, especially the women. That's my answer, and I mean it.
So you believe that issue is settled in Washington State. You wouldn't try to do anything as governor to change abortion laws in Washington State?
No, I don't think any politician should be working toward any agenda when it comes to abortion in Washington State. It's a question that's already been decided, and I don't believe any politician should be making that statement, should be making that change, should be making that decision regarding abortion for any woman in Washington State.
So when Bob Ferguson says that the state needs to have somebody who will fight for them if there is a potential change with federal laws, and that's why he should be governor, you would answer that
well,
now.
So Bob Ferguson also says Dave Reichert is dangerous for Washington State. Bob is going to run a campaign based on fear and based on lies. He's saying things that I wouldn't do and never intend to do. That's going to be the tactic that he has. It's the only tactic he has, is to use fear and lies to paint me in a light that is unfavorable to voters. People know me. I hope they listen to me closely in this interview. I have no intention at all of making any effort toward changing any laws in Washington State regarding abortion. That should be up to the voters, especially the women of Washington State.
And as far as gay marriage, because he raised the issue the other day about a speech that you had given about marriage being between a man and a woman, do you believe that gay marriage is also settled in Washington State?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter what I believe. What matters is people have free will. And my faith is God has given us all free will. So we have our own decisions to make as to who we're going to love, how we're going to create our families, what we're going to do for a living, and where we live, and how we survive. Those are things that are innate to our human nature. Those are inalienable rights, as they're called in the Constitution, and those are rights that are yours. And I have no intention whatsoever. In fact, I'll just share a quick story, and I know you're not going to have the time to put this on air. But
Hey, we've got KOMOnews.com too. We got plenty of we got a platform.
All right, so here's, and when I was running for sheriff, I think it was the second campaign, I was invited to speak just off of Broadway to a group of, to the LGBTQ community. So I went in, and the leader of the group introduces me and says, we know Dave and I and the rest of us may not agree on every issue, but we're going to have this discussion respectfully, which we did until we got to one individual who said, what do you believe? I shared my thoughts, and she got pretty angry. The leader of the group said, okay, we said we were going to be respectful, so let's move on to the next person. So I said, no, wait a minute, can we just go back to this person for a minute? And so I looked at her and I said, here's the deal. When this meeting is over and we open this door and we walk out of this meeting, we walk onto the streets of Broadway, if any one of you in here have your life threatened, I would give my life for you. That was back in, I want to say 2000 or 1990. I still feel the same way. I will protect the rights of every individual in this state.
LGBTQ, transgender.
Included, no question. Yep, absolutely.
So we'll kind of wrap on this, and hopefully that car will continue on through.
Did that cover my that strong answer? Or
Yes.
Are you going to be able to use that?
Yes, you're fine.
Okay, good.
So
You're not going to use it anyway, probably.
circle
Go
back.
ahead.
No.
This whole thing will be put together.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll
all
put
right.
this all together for
good.
digital. So let's circle back to how we started with the campaign, going into the convention. You did not get the endorsement from the state Republicans. Are you enjoying campaigning? I mean, I've heard that you don't really enjoy this part of it all, the campaign.
Well, who told you that? I think that's funny. Really?
Yeah, I've heard.
Oh man, did you see me down at Pybus Market? I love meeting people. I love visiting businesses. The only part that I don't appreciate is the fundraising part. But just because I don't like to do it doesn't mean we don't do it. We're closing in on $3 million already, so we must be doing something right. No, I love a campaign. I'm having a ball. My wife told me, she said, this is the happiest I've seen you since you retired from Congress. So even she's happy.
Even if you didn't get the endorsement from the state Republicans.
I don't care about that. Doesn't matter. We're going to win anyway.
Okay.
Yep.
We made it through the music and the
Awesome.
traffic.
Yeah, perfect.